What's up? Welcome back to Shralp Stories. This is Kolton Sullivan, and today we're going to do things a little bit different. Normally we do a surf in the beginning, but right now I'm going to go over how I figure out where I'm going to go surfing. Okay, there's two different ways you can do this. You can look for the day of, where you want to surf day of, and then you can also plan for the future. So I guess let's start for day of for now, and we'll figure out where we're going to surf today. So what I like to do personally is go straight to a spot on the Surfline app that shows the most swell. So, a swell magnet, for lack of a better term. Around here, swell magnets would be Lower Trestles, T Street, and, Salt Creek or something. So what I'll do is I'll pull up my Surfline app. I'll go to, let's say, wow, there's some info in here that you guys are going to look at and be like, ooh, I wonder what that spot is. Okay, so we're at Lower Trestles. Right now, the forecast, I go, from the live stream over to the forecast button here, and I don't read any of this stuff. Chris Borg, legend, knows a lot of stuff about surf forecasting, but these writings that they put out sometimes are pretty inaccurate. And also where it says 3 to 5 feet fair, waist to head high, this little number right here, it's a generalization. I don't always agree with that number. I look at more of these swell numbers off to the right hand side where it says 1 feet at 15 seconds southwest at 218, 1.3 feet 17 seconds west 279, and so on. So I look at those numbers. Now I've surfed these areas, whether it's lowers, uppers, church, you name it. I've surfed this area since I was born. This is where I grew up. So I know these places pretty well from doing this for so long. So what I recommend is, trial and error. Just keep surfing and keep trying to check this, and then factor in, what it looked like at that size with those two different directions. Maybe write it down in a notebook, and then that way you have something to reference on. You can be like, okay, 1 feet 15 seconds southwest 218. So 180 is directly south, right? Our coast kind of angles south right here. So 218 is probably going to be pretty direct, straight into our coastline, pretty straight south swell, you could say. It's not directly south, but it's going to hit our coast like a flat swell. And then 1.3 feet, 17 seconds out of the west. So 270 degrees is west. So that means 279 is pretty much straight west. And 17 seconds is fairly long period. A short period swell would be 6 seconds for around here. Long periods, anywhere from 11 to, I don't even know if I've ever seen a 20-second swell. It's pretty rare. Actually, that last Maverick swell was about 20 to 22 seconds. I remember reading the buoys during that last Maverick swell. It was 22 feet at 20 seconds out of the northwest, and that was when Mavericks was like 150 foot. So anyway, side note. So what I like to do is I like to look at those swell directions, look at the period, look at the height, and where it's coming from, the angle, the degree of the swell. So that means the swell is coming out of the south. It's going to be a lot of lefts around here because I've surfed here enough to know that it's mostly going to be lefts. That little bit of west swell is going to be good for a couple rights against the grain, so it might be kind of wedgy and peaky around here. So I'm thinking more along the lines of beach breaks now. I can tell you right now 3 to 5 feet is not correct. That's probably going to be more along the lines of, like, I don't even like to say feet, it's more like knee to waist high. Occasionally maybe a chest high set, so maybe 3 to 5 feet's like kind of close, but I don't know, I disagree. But anyway, so I'm thinking, little beach break wedges somewhere. Maybe I'll go down to, State Park or something like that. Probably just end up at Salt Creek, where I usually surf. Next thing I look for is winds. So I scroll down to the wind. Looks like the morning time's northeast, so it should be coming off the coast, slightly offshore. And then it turns this afternoon. It goes east, or wait, no, it's kind of swirling. So it goes offshore to side onshore, then back offshore. And it goes all the way up to 23 knots east-northeast. So that means it's going to be blowing really, really hard offshore tonight in the middle of the night, which typically means that it's going to blow the swell down quite a lot. Although in the morning time it's going to be pretty offshore. It's going to be really pretty conditions for tomorrow. So tomorrow is going to be smaller, is what I'm reading from this based on the winds. The swell does drop as well. You can see on this next page over, it drops a fair amount. And then, so check the swell, check the wind, and then now I'm checking the tide. So I go down here, low tide was at 7:44. Right now it is 8:36. So it's right around 2.1 feet. The tide only changes from 2 feet to 3 feet, so it's only moving about a foot. So it's really not moving that much. Not much is going to change. No rush to get down there. The wind's going to be good. Swell is going to be good. And the tide's not changing much. So might as well take your time in the morning, get a cup of coffee, and go cruise down there. The only thing that will change is the amount of people that are going to be there. So I keep that in mind. Sometimes it's kind of fun to look at this, wave energy section down here, so you can see like where the highest peak of energy is going to be. Wave consistency, I don't know. I disagree with all of this kind of stuff. I don't really look at it very much. And then if I'm traveling, I look at the bottom down here. It says first light is 6:27 a.m. So complete sunrise is 6:53. So I also keep that in mind. If I want to surf first light, I look down there and I'm like, okay, I'm in Portugal and I don't know when first light is because I just got here. So that will give you a good indicator at when the first time that you can paddle out would be, or the first time you'll be able to see waves. So then let's look at forecasting. So I'll go way over here and I'll scroll around and I'll kind of see, it says 3 to 4, 2 to 3, swells dropping, 1 to 2, then Saturday 2 to 3, Sunday 3 to 4 plus. So, that bottom bar thing, it's yellow and orange. That typically means it's going to be pretty bad, but that doesn't always mean it's going to be really bad. So what I'm looking at right here is, it says 3.8 feet at 7 seconds west. That's a wind swell. That means the waves are going to be really close together, really jumbly and mixed up and really peaky. So that's beach break. That's beach break material right there, is what I see. Now, then you scroll down and you see 10 knots of wind, 15 to 17 knots of wind. Day before is, about the same, 17 knots. And that's going to be blowing all day on Sunday. So, it's going to be peaky, there's going to be size, and it probably will be a little blown out, a little mushy, a little whitecappy, but all that's really good for learning how to surf. If you can learn how to surf in really bad waves, you'll end up surfing really good in good waves. So, I see this and I'm like, okay, this is a recipe for Monday being really fun. You look over here on Monday and it says 1.5 feet, 7 seconds out of the west. That's that wind swell that we saw from the day prior. 1.3 feet, 8 seconds west-northwest, 285, so it's a little bit more north than the other swell. And then we also have this 1 feet, 5 seconds south-southwest swell coming in as well. That's going to be really peaky, really fun, high tide in the morning, so, Newport Beach might be fun. Huntington Beach will be a little bit too high tide. Those are kind of both low tide waves. So, you're looking at, maybe State Park, something like that. Maybe T Street will be really fun, or San Clemente Pier on this day. Because the tide's so high, 6 feet, and the wind should be good. So I think, I look for wind as an indicator that swell is coming, and then the next following day, it's going to be really, really cold, but the waves will be really fun. So that's kind of some things I like to look for forecasting. If you see a ground swell, which I don't here at the moment, kind of look at it and see what it tells you. I'll go over to somewhere in Hawaii to kind of give you an example of a ground swell. So I'll look at the forecast here, and we'll go, so you see this 8 to 10 feet on Wednesday, Thursday. I'll go to Thursday, it's the back end of the swell. It looks like northwest wind, which is no bueno. So there's going to be a storm. 9.5 feet, 13 seconds. It's a relatively lower period for Hawaii, I'm pretty sure. But, you know, it's probably going to be pretty windy, kind of junky. Friday might be pretty good because it looks like trade winds start to come back up. It's east-northeast wind. Should be, you know, offshore to side offshore. So, you know, this is what I'll do if I'm picking swells for a trip. I'll kind of like flip around and see, you know, okay, what are the wind patterns doing? What are the swell patterns doing? You know, look at this size here, 7.6 feet, 14 seconds northwest. Okay, it's gonna be pretty big. That's a solid swell. If it says 7.6 feet, it's probably likely that it'll be in Hawaii, it'll be double that. So, you know, 14, 15 foot faces, it's gonna be solid waves. So, you know, those are kind of some little tips that I like to tell you guys about. You know, I don't look at 8 to 10 feet. I don't look at 10 to 15 feet, none of that stuff. I look at these numbers down here, 9.7 feet, 13 seconds, 11.5 feet. That's going to be like a solid 15 to 20 foot swell, like Waimea style. You know, wind looks good. So, you know, I disregard these numbers at the top. I use them as a generalization to focus in and look in detail at the swell height, the period, and the direction to figure out what I'm going to do, where I'm going to go. Then I go on to wind and tide if I make a decision. So those are kind of some tips and tricks, and, you know, let me know if you guys have some insight too. I'm no surf forecaster. This is just kind of things that I like to personally look at and how I figure out where I'm going to surf every day. I'm pretty jaded, and I end up surfing the same place more often than not. So, you know, let me know if there is some other tips and tricks that you guys like to use, because I'm still learning and I want to get better at this forecasting thing. So I actually saw a comment last week on the video that someone recommended maybe doing a mid-length or longboard Shralp. So waves are going to be pretty small for the next few days, so maybe I'll throw in a little mid-length or longboard Shralp here in the next future video. So thanks for tuning back in. Hopefully, you know, gave you guys a little bit of insight on how I figure out where I'm surfing every day, and yeah, love to hear the feedback. So I'll talk to you guys soon, and I'm gonna go surfing. Actually, the waves are kind of fun, so catch you later. Peace.